This has been a well-requested topic, especially over on my Twitter, on how I use automation scripts to improve my workflow and obviously to make it more efficient. Today we are going to be covering very basic techniques and explaining how we are going to be putting things together. So this isn't, you're not going to see what I've been doing over the last couple of weeks. This is just a basic one to show you how to edit Photoshop templates with scripts. There is a link in the description for you to download the starter kit that I've put together, which is what I'm actually going to be going through today. I am using Sublime Text as a text editor. I've also put a link to their site in the description below, so if you wanted to download that so you can open everything up and see it as I am seeing it. Don't have experience in any kind of web programming before, then you might find this video a bit hard to follow along. But I would recommend looking up JavaScript and obviously JSON objects, because they're the kind of things that we're going to be looking through today. Let's get into Photoshop. Let's open Sublime Text and let's do some automating. So the first thing you're going to see when you open the starter kit is 5 different folders. This is just to make it easier so you know where everything is. Assets. In here you'll check your player images, your badges, anything that you need to place in to the Photoshop file. Data, this is where we're going to store our data that we're going to read and then try and insert into the Photoshop file. PNG, JPEG, whatever you want to call it, this is where we're going to be saving our end results. And then PSD is our Photoshop template file, and then we've got scripts. This is where we're going to have our JavaScript file. We're going to generate a log so we can see what's happening as it's running. And JSON2.js is something that I got from GitHub, which allows us to read JSON objects. So as we head into Sublime Text, this is what we're going to be using to write our JavaScript. So as you open it up, you can see that I've already created a lot of the code for you so that you can follow along as I'm talking about it. This is easier than writing it out, and then you having to follow along and then type it out yourself. So as we go through from the top to bottom in this file, we've got our file source here, which is the PSD. If you run the script straight in Photoshop without opening your file, it will find it and open it for you. So that's all this bit does be here. We then want to set the file, when it's open, we want to set as the active document so that the script knows this is the file that it needs to work with. And then we've got our save path. This is where we want to save all our files at the end. This section here is just for log creation. So every time you run the script, it recreates the log so that you've got a fresh new log to look at. This is our main function. So when the JavaScript file loads into Photoshop, it's going to immediately run this function. So anything that you want to run needs to come through here first. So as you can see, we're running the function. It's loading in the data object, which is in our data and JSON file over here. At the moment, this is very basic. This is just to give you an idea of the type of things that we're going to be looking at over the next few weeks. And then we're passing the data into the process function, so that's linked to here. So the data that gets loaded from this part here gets set to this variable, and this gets passed then through from here into here, and that allows us to do more things with it. And then down the bottom we got default functions, which you don't really need to touch right now. So load JSON, this basically lets us pass through the document path and the file. It opens it, reads it, and then passes it back through as a JSON pass, so it's easy for us to read. We've got a save PNG. I like to save pretty much everything as a PNG, so we're going for this route down here. and this is how we log everything. So these functions you don't really need to touch, it'll just be this one really that we'll be playing with today. So let's go ahead and open up Photoshop. As you can see, we've already got a very basic setup. What we're going to do today is we're going to loop through this group here like this, and we're going to set each one as the team name rather than the number, just to give you an idea of what's going on. So to run the script, we are going to go File, Scripts, and Browse. I've actually set a shortcut to this so that it's easy for me to do. We're going to go into the Scripts folder, click on Make, open it, and as you can see, pretty quick. All it's doing is changing 3 elements. And if I go back into Sublime Text, I'll explain how it's doing it. So when it does entries equals load JSON, it loads this file, and then each element here gets passed through like this as an array, and that gets passed through as entries, which now becomes data. And we want to target, because we've got artboards, we need to first access that artboard. So we're going to set a variable called artboard just to make it easier for this tutorial. Document, doc is what we've set at the top. It's the active document, so we're still targeting the document that we're currently opening. Layer sets act as artboards and group layers. So first of all, we access layer sets, get by name artboard. And as you can see, the name of this artboard is just called artboard. We then want to access teams. So again, it's inside the artboard layer. So we need to say, right, we're looking inside the artboard layer now. We need to now access the layer sets for the teams, which is the groups. So as long as the names match up, you'll be able to access them quite easily. And then we're going to loop through each row. So we've got 3 here, 1, 2, 3. If I do it like this, it'll probably be easier for you to see. So as you can see, we've got 3 rows to loop through. So once it's found this, it does data.length, which is the number of rows that we've got. So we've got 1, 2, 3 here. So it's going to start at 0, and as long as I is less than the length, it will continue. And then we're just going to log, every time we go through a row, we're going to log the team name just to show you how the script works. So this is the log file. So at the top you can see it gets created, the file gets read, and then it's going to show you each one that we're looping through. But here, this is just so you know that it's working before you start changing things in your Photoshop file. So data is set as an array, so we need to access each row in that array. So each time we log through now, I is going to be a number, and it's going to identify the row that we're currently on. So if we do log, we log I and pass it through to the log file. We are now going to run this again so you can see what happens in the log file. So as we're looping through, you can see there's a number. This indicates what current row we are on. And in JavaScript and in JSON, it always starts from 0, never from 1. So just remember that when you're doing 0, it actually means 1 in Photoshop. So when you've got your layers set up as 1, 2, 3, Just remember that when it's on 0, that actually means the first element, and 1 is the second one. Just add 1 on each time so you know which ones you're accessing. So it's doing data 0, which is this one. Get team. So we want to get the team name, so it passes back the value. And then we'll log in that, obviously. So we're doing that here. So we're doing teams. So the current layer is 0. So the first layer here in the array. In JavaScript, that means 0, but obviously in here, it's your first layer. And then there's a few little things that are already built in. So we want to access it as a text item because it is text. And then we want to set the contents to the current row and the team name. So when you run that, it loops through each one, accesses each layer. So 1, 2, 3, which is actually 0, 1, 2. It is a bit confusing. And then it accesses this layer, sets the name, moves on to the next one until it gets to the bottom. And then we're going to uncomment this, save PNG, and we're going to call it test. And now we're going to run it again. We're going to go back to our folder, check in PNG, and there is our file. As we move forward with these tutorials, like I said, this was a chance for you to get used to the type of things that we're going to be going through. This is a base starter kit. There's plenty more we can do. We can access, PSB files, so you can link everything together. You open one main template file, and then as you're going through everything, you can open the linked Photoshop files, edit those, save them, close them, and it updates the main Photoshop file as well. So this was just, let's get used to doing everything first before we jump straight in, because if you haven't got any coding experience before, this will be quite scary for you to look at. But yeah, we'll crack on with this in the next couple of weeks. Hopefully you're going to learn quite a bit. If you like this video, please drop it a like. I'll see you soon.